Welcome to Whispered Women's Stories. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with red flags, only bank statements, plane tickets, and a man who thought I'd never fight back. This is today's story, the day I stopped loving him and started saving myself.
Ophelia, don't cry. If your eyes get all swollen, you won't look pretty anymore. Beckett Thorpe's fingers were a little rough, carrying the familiar scent of disinfectant, as they gently brushed the corner of my eye. His gaze was so tender it felt like a deep, still pool. If I didn't know him as well as I did, I might have drowned in that fake affection. Over the loudspeakers in the terminal, an announcement urged passengers bound for Los Angeles to proceed with boarding. I clutched his sleeve tightly, my knuckles turning white, tears spilling down like beads slipping off a broken string. "Do you really have to go?" I choked out, my voice trembling, sounding exactly like a woman who couldn't bear to be apart from her man. "You'll be gone 2 or 3 years this time. I'll be all alone at home, and I'm scared, silly girl. This kind of advanced training doesn't come around often. Once I'm back with some credentials under my belt, I'll get promoted for real," Beckett said with a smile, pulling me into his arms, his chin resting on the top of my head. "Then we'll move into a bigger house. It'll be time to have a baby, too. Be good, okay? Go home. Take care of yourself, and make sure we video call every day." I leaned into his chest and nodded hard, burying my face in his overcoat and letting out a muffled, If you listen closely, you'd realize that sound wasn't sobbing from reluctance at all. It was me holding my breath, trying to suppress the nausea rising in my throat. At last, Beckett let go of me and picked up his silver-gray Rimowa suitcase. He took a few steps forward, then stopped and turned back to wave at me. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time he turned around, the smile on his face was flawless, full of devotion to his sweetheart and anticipation for the future. By the time his figure completely disappeared around the corner of the security checkpoint, the tear tracks on my face hadn't even dried yet, but the bleak curve at the corner of my lips vanished in an instant. I lifted my wrist and glanced at the old watch I'd worn for 5 years. 10:40 a.m. Of you. I had played along with this act for 37 whole days. Honestly, I was exhausted. Thankfully, the shoot was finally over. 01. The ceiling of JFK Airport's Terminal 4 soared high above, sunlight pouring in through massive glass walls and reflecting off the polished marble floor in blinding white glare. The space buzzed with people, couples reluctant to part, business travelers rushing by, and tour groups dragging suitcases along with their families. I stood just outside the railing of the international departures area, like an abandoned statue. Just moments ago, there had been 2 other people standing beside Beckett, the colleagues he referred to as going for training together. One of them was a female coworker in a khaki trench coat, oversized sunglasses covering half her face. While Beckett was saying goodbye to me, she stayed about 10 feet away, head down, scrolling through her phone as if she didn't care. But I saw it clearly. Her toes were angled toward Beckett the entire time. That was Thalia Voss, the pharmaceutical sales rep Beckett liked to describe as highly capable but socially withdrawn, the woman labeled in his contacts as Sundale Pharma Thalia. When Beckett hugged me earlier, Thalia turned her head slightly away. I could almost picture the impatience and mockery in her eyes behind those sunglasses. To her, I was probably just a soon-to-be-fooled ex. Some foolish woman whose whole world revolved around the kitchen and her man. I sniffed quietly, pulled a tissue from my bag, and unhurriedly wiped the tears from my face. The tears were real. My eyes truly stung. But they weren't shed for a farewell. They were for a memorial. For the 5 years of my youth that had died. For the version of myself who once naively believed in growing old hand in hand. "Goodbye, Beckett," I whispered softly to the now empty security entrance. This goodbye wasn't about hoping to meet again. It was a final farewell. A few people nearby cast sympathetic glances my way, probably thinking this woman who had just sent off her man was pitiful. I didn't care. I straightened the wrinkled collar of my coat and turned toward the parking garage. My heels clicked against the floor, sharp, steady taps. The Ophelia Lennox who had been timid, obedient, and gentle in front of Beckett died the very moment I turned away. 02. When I slid into the red Mazda, the cramped interior finally gave me a sense of safety. I'd bought this car before getting married. I'd driven it for 6 years, and it was getting old. Beckett had always looked down on it, said it was too small, underpowered, and tried more than once to get me to sell it and buy a new one. I never agreed. Looking back now, that was probably my subconscious holding on to the last bit of territory that truly belonged to me. I touched up my makeup in the rearview mirror. The woman reflected there had slightly reddened eyes, but her gaze was so cold it was almost frightening. From the innermost pocket of my bag, I pulled out a black bank card. It was the card for our joint account, opened when we got married. For 5 years, all the household savings, redeemed investments, and Beckett's salary and bonuses, at least the ones he showed me, had all gone into this card. I checked the time on my phone, 11:15 a.m. Ain? According to the flight schedule, Flight CA-983 to Los Angeles would take off in 10 minutes. Once the plane was airborne, Beckett would be out of contact for at least 13 hours. Those 13 hours were my golden window. I started the car. The engine let out its familiar roar. I didn't head home. Instead, I drove straight onto the airport expressway, aiming for the nearest large bank branch to the airport. At the bank, since I was a VIP client, I was taken directly into a private wealth management room. The teller was a young woman. She looked at the card and my ID, then glanced at the numbers on her screen, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Miss Lennox, are you sure you want to transfer everything out? If you redeem this investment now, you'll lose some of the interest." "I'm sure," I replied without a trace of hesitation. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. "Transfer it all out. Split it into 3 transactions and send them to these 3 accounts." They were accounts I'd opened just yesterday, accounts that belonged to me, and only me. "All right, please enter your PIN." Those 6 digits, I'd typed them countless times. Every time before, I'd thought I was building our little family, saving for a future child's education, putting away money for Beckett's down payment on a bigger house. This time, I was buying my own freedom. Beep. As I hit enter, the number on the screen dropped to 0. $6,223,400. When the teller handed me the receipt to sign, her hands were shaking slightly. "Ms. Lennox, the transaction is complete. Thank you." I put the card and receipt away and walked out of the bank. The noon sun poured down harshly, making my head spin a little. I tilted my head up and squinted at the sky. A silver plane cut across the blue, leaving behind a long white contrail as it headed toward the ocean beyond. That might have been Beckett's flight. Right now, he was probably sitting comfortably in business class. Maybe he was thoughtfully pulling a blanket over Thalia. Maybe he was raising a glass of champagne to celebrate the start of their new life. He must have been thinking that the silly girl back home was curled up under the covers, crying her eyes out. The corner of my mouth lifted. It was the first genuine smile I'd had all day. "Have a nice trip, Beckett," I said silently. "I hope you like the welcome gift waiting for you." That $6 million was the final security I'd traded for with 5 years of marriage, endless endurance, and constant compromise. 03. Let's rewind time by 37 days. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the cafe's floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling across the wooden tables. I was checking this month's coffee bean purchase list when my phone vibrated. "Beckett, Ophelia, I've got an emergency surgery tonight. It'll probably run late. Don't wait for me to eat." Out of habit, I replied with a sticker that said, "Okay, take care of yourself and remember to eat." Unexpected situations like this were far too common in a doctor's family. Over the past 5 years, I'd grown used to being woken up by his calls in the middle of the night, used to watching carefully prepared anniversary dinners go cold on the table. At 9 p.m., the cafe closed. I figured Beckett definitely wouldn't have eaten if he was in surgery, so I went to the congee shop next door and packed up his favorite pork and century egg congee, along with a few custard buns. Then I drove to the hospital. I wanted to surprise him. Or maybe I just wanted to bring him a little warmth. Back then, I was still that Ophelia who treated her man like her whole world, who thought of home as her entire life. When I reached the orthopedic ward, the hallway was quiet. Ivy, the nurse at the station, was looking down at her phone. When she saw me, she stood up in surprise. "Hey, Ophelia, what are you doing here?" I brought Beckett some late-night food, I said, lifting the insulated bag. Is he still in the operating room? Ivy froze for a moment, a strange look flashing across her face. The OR? No, Beckett got off work at 5:30 this afternoon. He said he had something to take care of at home. The air seemed to solidify in that instant. Oh, my mind buzzed, but years of emotional control made me force a smile automatically. Then I must have remembered it wrong. His surgery is probably tomorrow. Look at my memory. Ivy clearly relaxed and didn't think much of it. Wow, you really work hard. It's so late and you still came all this way. I'll head back then. You all take care. I fled the hospital. Sitting in the car, the bag of hot congee gave off a rich, tempting aroma, but right then, it made my stomach churn. Off work at 5:30. Now it was 9:30. 4 hours. Where had he been? What had he been doing? I didn't call to confront him. I didn't go crazy, searching everywhere for him. I simply drove home in silence and tossed the bag of congee into the trash downstairs. Back in the apartment, everything was dark. I took a shower and lay down on the bed, but sleep wouldn't come. At 11:40 p.m., I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. Beckett was back. He slipped into bed, cold air clinging to him, and wrapped his arms around me from behind. His voice carried exhaustion. Baby, I'm wiped out. That patient was really complicated. 5 hours straight. With my back to him, my body stiffened for a split second, then slowly relaxed. That was hard on you. Get some sleep, I heard myself say gently. When he turned to place his phone on the nightstand, a faint, very faint, scent drifted into my nose. It wasn't the smell of hospital disinfectant. It wasn't my body wash either. It was a high-end woody floral fragrance with a hint of citrus sweetness. Hermès Eau de Merveille. I'd never used that brand of perfume. In the darkness, I opened my eyes and stared at the faint patch of light on the curtains. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Vote for. Some things are better left uninvestigated. But once suspicion takes root, every tiny clue comes rushing in like a tide. Over the next week, I acted completely normal. I made him honey water every morning and pressed his shirts for him every night. But inside, I was watching him like a hunter, quietly, patiently tracking every move of my prey. Beckett worked late 3 more times. I didn't go back to the hospital to check. Instead, I confirmed it through indirect ways, calling his department under the excuse of needing his signature, paying attention to changes in his step count on his fitness app. It was enough to prove that he wasn't at the hospital at all. Still, I didn't check his phone. Beckett never let it out of his sight. He even took it into the shower. I could probably guess the password, but snooping recklessly would only tip him off. I run a business. I trust numbers. So I started with the household accounts. Over the past few years, I'd handled most of our finances. Beckett had a secondary card he used for gas and meals. Using the excuse that our investments haven't been doing well lately and I want to reorganize our spending, I logged into online banking and pulled up the past 6 months of transactions from that card. Most of the expenses looked normal. Gas stations, the hospital cafeteria, convenience stores. But buried in the dense list were a few charges that stood out painfully. March 14th, White Day. A French restaurant, $1,880. That day, he'd said it was a department dinner. April 5th, a 5-star hotel executive lounge, $680. And the one that made my heart pound violently was from last Friday. Cartier Boutique, $86,000. $86,000. I couldn't help but touch the platinum necklace around my neck, the one I'd worn for 3 years. He'd given it to me for our 2nd anniversary. It hadn't even cost $5,000. I took a deep breath and saved a screenshot of the transaction. The next afternoon, I put on flawless makeup and went to the Cartier boutique downtown. Hello, I said to the sales associate with a smile, calm and natural, as if I were simply handling a routine errand. I'm Mr. Thorpe's partner. He bought a necklace here last week and mentioned there was a small flaw, so he wanted it repaired. He's been busy and forgot to pass it to me. I just wanted to check, did he already bring it in or not yet? The associate was professional. She checked the system, then looked up at me with a flicker of confusion in her eyes. Ms. Lennox, our records show that Mr. Thorpe did purchase a fully diamond set love necklace last Friday, but there's no repair record. She paused, choosing her words carefully. And the notes indicate that a Ms. Thalia tried it on and took it directly. It wasn't gift-wrapped? Thalia. This was the second time I'd heard that name. Oh, right. I slapped my forehead lightly, pretending to suddenly remember. That's my mistake. He was helping a coworker pick it up. Her name is Thalia. I got mixed up. Sorry about that. I thanked the associate with a smile and walked out of the boutique. The moment I stepped away, my legs felt weak. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was fact. An $86,000 necklace, tried on and taken directly. What a coworker. 05. Once I had a name, everything else became much easier. I went back to the cafe and dug out some old group photos from a department gala I'd attended with Beckett years ago. There were over 100 people in the pictures. I took a magnifying glass and examined them one by one. Finally, in the third row from the front, far left, I found her. She was young, not stunningly beautiful, but striking in her own way. There was a sharp, calculating look in her eyes and brows. She wore a business suit and stood slightly behind Beckett, her body subtly angled toward him. Thalia, the pharmaceutical sales rep. I pulled up an old backup of Beckett's previous phone and found Thalia's contact. Then I spent $200 to buy a secondary account, also posing as someone in pharmaceutical sales, and added her through an industry group. Her social media was set to visible for 3 days only, but 3 days were more than enough. The first post had been uploaded yesterday. Even if the road ahead is uncertain, having you by my side makes it the most beautiful view. Attached were screenshots of 2 plane tickets. Departure, London. Destination, Los Angeles. Date, 37 days later. The flight number was exactly the same one Beckett had told me. I stared at the screenshot, feeling the blood in my body rush backward. So the so-called company-sponsored training, the so-called working hard for our future, was actually a carefully planned elopement. He was going to the U.S., but not alone. He was taking someone with him to start a new life. I scrolled down. Another post. A selfie. In the photo, Thalia sat in the passenger seat, sunlight pouring over her face as she smiled brightly. Around her slender neck was unmistakably the $86,000 Cartier necklace. In the background, you could see the driver's hand gripping the steering wheel. On that wrist was the Longines watch I'd given Beckett for his birthday last year. I flipped my phone face down on the table and closed my eyes, my stomach twisting violently. So this whole time, I was the only fool in that home. Serpal and Nodent. If all of this had only been emotional betrayal, what I discovered next would still have dragged me into an abyss with no return. It happened late at night, 3 days after I found the plane tickets. Beckett was fast asleep, faintly snoring. I got out of bed quietly and went into the study. I knew the password to his computer. It was our wedding anniversary. How ironic. He used that date as the key, while hiding evidence of betraying me inside. I turned on the computer. I didn't bother checking chat histories. I went straight to online banking and his files. I was trained in accounting. To me, numbers are more honest than sweet words. I pulled up the transaction history of his salary account, along with the full records of our joint account. The moment I started checking, my hands and feet went ice cold. Cold sweat soaked through my pajamas instantly. Over 5 years of living together, our joint account should have held nearly $9 million. That included the remaining balance from buying our home, investment returns, profits from the cafe, and his income. But over the past year, the balance had been shrinking, little by little. Each transfer was labeled as trust investment, loan to a friend, or stock market replenishment. Because I trusted him, and because I was busy running the cafe, I never pressed for details. Now I checked every transfer one by one, a total of $2. $8 million, all sent to a private account under the name Voss. I didn't need to guess who that was. What was worse, far worse, was what I found buried deep in his D drive, a folder. Inside, it was a Word document titled Draft Supplementary Prenuptial Property Agreement, along with a scanned copy of the purchase contract for our apartment. That apartment, the $1.5 million down payment, had come from my father's compensation after he died in a workplace accident. At the time, I wasn't married yet. Beckett had suggested putting both our names on the deed for easier upgrades in the future. I'd foolishly agreed. And now, the document laid out a clear plan, how to prove that the $1.5 million was a gift, so the property could be classified as shared assets and split evenly in a separation. He wasn't just planning to drain our cash. He wanted a share of the money my father had died for. I stared at the screen, my nails digging deep into my palms until the pain was sharp enough to stop me from screaming. 5 years together, sharing the same bed. I thought I was his partner. Turns out, in his eyes, I was nothing more than a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. The most ridiculous part? He was even trying to cheat me out of the last shred of dignity and security I deserved. If you show no mercy, then don't blame me for showing none either. 07. Early the next morning, I made him breakfast as usual and watched him leave for work. The moment the door closed behind him, I picked up my phone and called an old classmate of mine, Officer Silas Kenner. Silas, help me find a reliable lawyer, the kind who specializes in marital property cases. That afternoon, at a law firm downtown, I met Attorney Hale. Hale was a sharp, capable woman in her 40s. After listening to my story and reviewing the evidence screenshots I'd organized overnight, she adjusted her glasses, her expression turning keen and focused. Ms. Lennox, the situation is very clear, Hale said calmly and professionally. The other party has committed serious misconduct, including infidelity during the relationship and the transfer of joint assets. If you file for divorce now, your chances of winning are very high. But, she continued, changing her tone slightly, once he leaves the country, filing at this stage will make things much more complicated. Serving legal documents, collecting evidence overseas, and freezing assets will all become lengthy and difficult processes. And the $8 million has already been transferred. Recovering it will take time. If he gets to the U.S., refuses to come back or spends the money, enforcement will be extremely hard. My grip tightened around the water cup. So what should I do? Just watch him walk away? Hale looked at me meaningfully. Ms. Lennox, the law protects those who understand it. Since you're not divorced yet, all the funds under both your names are legally considered joint property. Both parties have equal rights to dispose of joint assets. She didn't spell it out, but I understood perfectly. As for the apartment, Hale added, picking up the copy of the purchase contract, the down payment came from your father's inheritance. As long as the evidence chain is solid, we can argue that this portion belongs to you personally. But that requires litigation and time. I understand. I stood up, feeling a heavy weight lift from my chest, replaced by a resolve I'd never felt before. Before he boards that plane, he'll definitely be watching the accounts. I have to wait until the very last moment. Hale nodded in approval. You're very composed, Ms. Lennox. Remember, over the next month you need to perform flawlessly. You can't let him sense anything unusual. Don't worry, I smiled, though there was no warmth in my eyes. I've been playing the role of the perfect partner for 5 years. I'm very good at it. The next 37 days became the peak of my acting career. I swallowed every bit of anger, disgust, and despair, grinding them down and forcing them deep inside. I became even more considerate than before. I bought him the noise-canceling headphones he'd been talking about for months, calling them a farewell gift for his trip abroad. I helped him pack, organizing everything down to cold medicine and bandages. Beckett clearly enjoyed the attention. Sometimes, watching my busy figure from behind, a trace of guilt would flicker across his face, but it was shallow and vanished in an instant. One night at dinner, he tested the waters. Ophelia, if the project over there gets really busy and I have to delay my return by half a year, would you be upset? My chopsticks paused for a beat. Then I looked up and gave him the gentlest smile. What are you saying? As long as it's good for your career, I'll support you. Half a year, even a full year is fine. I've got things covered at home. Don't worry. Beckett visibly relaxed and put a piece of rib on my plate. Baby, you're amazing. Marrying you is the greatest blessing of my life. Listen to that, such beautiful words. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have been moved to tears. But I knew exactly what he was doing. He was laying the groundwork to stay in the U.S. and testing whether I would cause trouble. During that month, whenever he was in the shower or asleep, I secretly photocopied the property deed, printed all the bank statements, and went to a notary office to preserve the evidence. The hardest day to endure was Beckett's birthday. He held a small farewell gathering at home and invited a few close colleagues. Thalia was there too. She wore a white dress, light makeup, looking harmless and innocent. She called me Ophelia, praised my cooking, and even gave me a hand cream as a gift. "You're so good with your hands, you should take good care of them," she said with a smile, her eyes flickering back and forth between the two of them. I smiled as I accepted it. "Thank you, Thalia. That's very thoughtful of you." In that moment, I really wanted to dump the plate of spicy fish right onto her face. But I held back. I watched them chatting and laughing in the living room, watched Beckett and Thalia exchange loaded glances. I felt like an outsider, watching a ridiculous clown show from the sidelines. But I knew this. Only the one who laughs last truly wins. 08. After leaving the bank, I went back to that empty apartment. Beckett's presence still lingered inside. The half cup of tea he hadn't finished was still on the coffee table, but I felt no attachment at all anymore. I collapsed onto the couch and watched the sky outside darken little by little. My phone lay beside me, quiet as a brick, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. 8:30 p.m. By my calculation, Beckett's flight should have been transferring in San Francisco around then. Sure enough, the screen lit up. Caller ID, Beckett. My heart skipped for a split second, then settled into an eerie calm. This moment had finally arrived. I took a deep breath and answered, my voice lazy and natural. "Hey, did you land? Are you tired?" The line was silent, except for faint static. Several seconds passed before Beckett's voice came through, tightly restrained, trembling just slightly. "Ophelia, I'm in San Francisco. Just now. I got a text alert from the bank." "A large transaction alert," he said, his voice turning cold, no longer pretending to be gentle. "Over $6 million. Everything's been transferred out?" "Was that you?" The air seemed to freeze. I shifted into a more comfortable position on the couch. A cold smile curved my lips, though my voice stayed calm. "Yes, I moved it. 6,223,400. All of it." Dead silence on the other end. About half a minute later, Beckett exploded. "Ophelia, have you lost your mind? What the hell are you doing? That's all of our savings." "Yeah, all of it," I replied flatly. "And since it's our money, I have the right to deal with it too, don't I?" "What are you trying to say?" Panic and rage bled into his voice. "Did someone tell you something?" I let out a soft laugh, twirling the fringe of the couch with my fingers. "Beckett, stop pretending. Isn't Thalia right next to you? Let her listen too. After all, half that money was probably meant to be spent on her." 09. Heavy breathing came through the line, along with the faint sound of a woman's voice in the background. "You're talking nonsense." "What, Thalia?" "I'm alone during the transfer." Beckett was still struggling desperately. "That's enough." I cut him off, my tone turning icy. "Let's stop acting. I've played along with this little show of yours for 37 days. I'm exhausted." 2 tickets to Los Angeles. Flight CA 983. Seats 12A and 12B. An $86,000 Cartier necklace, picked up by Thalia, and the $2. 8 million. 12 transfers, all into Thalia's account. With every sentence, his breathing grew heavier. "Want me to keep going?" I asked coolly. "If you'd like, I can also talk about that draft agreement on your computer, how to turn my family's apartment into your property." This time, Beckett fell completely silent. Every excuse collapsed in the face of solid evidence. After a long while, his voice changed, cold, unfamiliar, vicious. "So you investigated me? You snooped through my computer? You lied to me first, I shot back. If I hadn't checked, should I have waited until you sold me out and then helped you count the money? That $6 million is joint property. Beckett roared. Moving it without my consent is illegal. I can sue you. Go ahead. I laughed, so hard my eyes almost filled with tears. You know it's joint property too, huh? Then what do you call the $2? $8 million you transferred to Thalia? That's asset concealment. I can sue you for that and recover it. Beckett, you're educated. You should understand the law. The money's in my hands now. The evidence is too. You want to sue me? Fine. Come back and do it. I'll see you in court. You. He clearly hadn't expected this level of toughness from the woman he'd always thought obedient. Furious, he snapped. Ophelia, don't push things this far. I need money for my project in the U.S. I need money to live. You took everything? Are you trying to ruin me? Ruin you? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. For 5 years, I scrimped and saved. I wouldn't even buy myself decent clothes. Everything was for your career, for this home. And what did I get? You took my money and ran off with another woman. Beckett, I've played the role of the loving partner for 5 years. That's enough. This show ends here. Beep, beep, beep. I hung up. Then I turned off my phone. In that instant, the world went quiet. And the storm didn't stop after I hung up. It only grew fiercer. 3 days later, I received a formal legal notice from a lawyer Beckett had hired back home. The wording was aggressive, demanding that I immediately return the illegally appropriated joint marital assets or they would take legal action. I took a photo of the notice and sent it to Attorney Hale. She replied, as expected. Ignore it. Just standard procedure. Right after that, Beckett shifted his attack from legal pressure to moral manipulation. My mom suddenly called me, her voice anxious. Ophelia, Beckett called and said you're not in a good mental state. He said you took all the household money and want a separation. What's going on? Turns out Beckett had been calling every relative and mutual friend he could reach, painting himself as a poor man struggling abroad for his career, threatened by a partner who ran off with the money. Mom, I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. I know what I'm doing. It's complicated, and I can't explain it all over the phone. But he's not who you think he is. Do you trust me? Of course I trust you. My mom was hot-tempered but fiercely protective. I knew something was off about him lately. Don't be afraid. Mom will get on a train and come to London to stay with you. No, Mom. I can handle it myself. The moment I hung up, another call came in, Beckett's mother. She was the stereotypical old-school rural woman who had always nitpicked me. The second I answered, she launched into a tirade. Ophelia, you spendthrift woman. My son is suffering abroad and you took all the money. What are you trying to do? Don't tell me you've got someone else. I'm telling you right now, transfer the money back to him immediately or I'll come make a scene. I held the phone away from my ear, listening to the shrill yelling, and felt the last trace of goodwill grind away. Ma'am, I cut in coldly. Your son is living in the U.S. with another woman. Her name is Thalia. 2 tickets. They left together. If you don't believe me, go ask your son yourself. You're talking nonsense. My son is an honest man. And one more thing, I continued. He transferred nearly $3 million to that woman. Half of that money came from my father's death compensation. If you think that's fine, then we have nothing left to discuss. I hung up and blocked her number. At the same time, Beckett posted a status visible only to select people. The photo showed a lonely figure on a San Francisco street. Caption, far from home, you realize that even the closest people can stab you in the back. Disheartening. Whispers began circulating among mutual friends. Some tried to probe me. Others tried to play peacemaker. I watched their clownish performances with nothing but a cold smile. Come on then. Since the masks are off, I'm not afraid anymore. 11. Just as I was fighting alone, an unexpected ally appeared. It was Ivy, the nurse I'd met at the hospital that day. On Friday afternoon, she came into my cafe to buy coffee and lingered for a long time without leaving. When there were fewer customers, she leaned in and lowered her voice. Ophelia, she said. People in the department all know that what Beckett did this time wasn't exactly decent. I drew a small heart in the foam of her cappuccino. So you've heard too? Everyone has, Ivy sighed. There's actually something I don't know if I should tell you. Beckett's trip to the U.S. wasn't hospital-sponsored at all. My hand paused. What do you mean? He applied as a self-funded visiting scholar, Ivy explained. On paper, it's further training, but in reality, it's unpaid leave. The hospital didn't reimburse a single cent, and the department head said if he doesn't show results within 6 months, he might even lose his associate director position. I was stunned. So the so-called official assignment and promotion prospects were all lies to keep me obediently holding the fort at home. He was planning to abandon everything here and gamble everything in the U.S. And one more thing, Ivy added, glancing around and lowering her voice even further. That Thalia? Her reputation isn't good. She's been involved with another department head before. She's very capable at that sort of thing. You should be careful. I squeezed Ivy's hand gratefully. Thank you for telling me. This coffee's on me. After she left, I sat by the window, watching people come and go outside. Beckett, for a woman like that, you abandoned your wife, risked your career, and spun lies big enough to cover the sky. Since you're so determined to gamble, then I'll make sure you lose everything. Edge? That night, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. My instinct told me it was Thalia. Ms. Lennox? Her voice carried arrogance, mixed with barely concealed anxiety. This is Thalia. Shall we talk? I put the phone on speaker and continued trimming my nails. What's there to talk about? Beckett says you're getting divorced sooner or later, she said bluntly. About that $6 million, he asked me to tell you. Either return it and everyone can part peacefully, or see you in court. And you won't come out of it clean either. I let out a soft scoff. He told you to make this call. Are you his lawyer or his messenger? She choked for a moment, then her tone sharpened. Ophelia, I know you're upset, but be realistic. Beckett's been with me for 2 years. He doesn't want a life with you anymore? What's the point of dragging this out? Ms. Voss, I said calmly, setting down the nail clippers, my voice as gentle as a bedtime story. Let me tell you something. 3 years ago, when Beckett had just been promoted to associate director, there was a female intern just like you. She thought she'd found true love. Later, she was transferred to a remote branch hospital and never came back. Guess who made that happen? Silence fell on the other end. And there's more, I continued. Of the two, $8 million he transferred to you. $5 million came from my father's death compensation. My father died in a work accident when I was 22. Beckett moved that blood money behind my back. Ms. Voss, if he can scheme against the woman he sleeps next to, what makes you think you'll be the exception? You're trying to drive a wedge between us? Thalia said, her voice wavering. Whether it's manipulation or not, you know the truth yourself, I replied coldly. Right now, he has no job in the U.S., no income, and the money's in my hands. How long do you think what you have left will last over there? 3 months? 6? When the money's gone, do you think he'll protect you or push you out as the scapegoat? He doesn't truly care about me, and he won't care about you either. To him, you're just a card that's convenient right now, or a new toy that excites him. Once the novelty fades, you'll be nothing. Let's wait and see, Ms. Voss. I hung up. This round, I attacked the heart. 13. Days passed. My cafe business grew better and better, while news from across the ocean reached me in fragments. Officer Kenner had a friend who worked as an immigration lawyer in the U.S. And through him, I learned quite a bit. Just as I'd expected, Beckett wasn't doing well. First came the money problems. San Francisco and Los Angeles were brutally expensive. Their apartment alone cost $3,000 a month. Without the steady financial support from home, and with the $6 million cut off by me, their quality of life plummeted. Then there were the visa issues. Beckett held a J-1 research visa and wasn't allowed to work legally. Thalia was on a B-2 tourist visa with only 6 months of stay and almost no chance of changing status. Worst of all, Beckett's visiting scholar program ran into trouble. His English was barely good enough for professional exams, nowhere near sufficient for high-intensity academic exchange. Rumor had it that his supervisor was deeply dissatisfied and hinted several times that the program might be terminated early if he didn't improve. When poverty hits, even real couples struggle, let alone two people with ulterior motives. I heard that Thalia started complaining constantly. The apartment was too small, she couldn't buy designer bags, Beckett wasn't finding ways to get money. They fought more and more. One night, Beckett got drunk and called me, slurring, "Ophelia, I was wrong. I want to eat the noodles you used to make." Listening to his incoherent rambling, I felt nothing but absurdity. "What you want isn't noodles," I said into the phone. "You want to crawl back. Too bad. The grass has already been trampled." Even though I had the upper hand legally and financially, life always finds ways to cause trouble. Half a month later, my mother-in-law really showed up. That day, I had just gotten off work when I saw her sitting on the ground outside my door, a huge woven sack beside her, slapping her thighs and wailing, "This is karma." The daughter-in-law emptied the house. She won't let people live. Neighbors stood around, pointing and whispering. I walked over, didn't help her up like I used to, but opened the door and said coldly, "If you're going to make a scene, do it inside. Don't embarrass yourself out here." She scrambled to her feet and followed me in. The moment she entered, she threw her bag on the floor. "Ophelia, you return the money today, or I'll stay here and never leave." I poured a glass of water, set it on the coffee table, then went to my room and brought out a folder. "Mom, don't rush to scold me," I said, spreading the documents out. "You can read. Take a look yourself." They were printouts of Beckett's transfer records to Thalia, thick stacks of paper. Screenshots of 2 plane tickets to Los Angeles. Photos from Thalia's social media, showing off their relationship, his hand, his watch, unmistakable. As she looked through them, her face changed. Her arrogance shrank, though she still forced the words out. "Men. Sometimes they just play around outside. Can't you be more generous? Do you really have to tear the family apart?" Generous. I laughed. "Mom, look carefully. Of this $3 million, $1.5 million is my father's death compensation. When my father died, where was Beckett? He was dating me. He knew exactly what that money meant to me." I pointed at the records, my eyes finally reddening. "He used my father's compensation to support another woman, and you're asking me to be generous? Is that what a so-called honest man does?" She opened her mouth, staring at the numbers, and couldn't say a word. "This won't be settled privately," I said, taking a deep breath and gathering the documents. "We'll follow legal procedures. If you want to live here, I won't stop you, but this apartment is about to be frozen and liquidated by the court. When that happens, we'll all have to move out." She left in disgrace. Her back was hunched much more than before. The once overbearing old woman was finally defeated by the actions of the son she'd always been proud of. After closing the door, I leaned against it and cried freely for the first time. Not for Beckett. For myself. 14. 3 months later, Beckett came back, even sooner than I'd expected. His visiting scholar program had completely fallen apart. The hospital back home issued a final ultimatum. If he didn't return to cancel his leave, it would be treated as an automatic resignation. Thalia didn't come back with him. I heard the two of them had a violent fight over there. Thalia called the police, claiming domestic abuse, and Beckett was nearly detained. In the end, they tore into each other completely and went their separate ways. The day Beckett returned, it was pouring rain in London. Dragging that silver-gray suitcase soaked from head to toe, he appeared outside my cafe. He'd lost a lot of weight. His beard was unkempt, his eyes dull and unfocused. There was nothing left of the confident, polished elite he'd been 3 months earlier. I was about to close the shop. When I saw him, my heart was unexpectedly calm, like a pool of still water. "Ophelia." He called my name in a hoarse voice. I locked the door, opened my umbrella, and got ready to leave. Beckett rushed over and blocked my way, then dropped to his knees in the rain with a heavy thud. "Ophelia, I know I was wrong. I was out of my mind. I've cut ties with her. Completely. Can we start over, please?" Rain streamed down his face, impossible to tell whether it was rain or tears. 5 years ago, that sight would have shattered my heart. Now, all I felt was that he was dirty. "Beckett, get up," I said, holding my umbrella and looking down at him. He thought I was softening and scrambled to his feet, reaching for my hand. "I knew you still loved me." I stepped back, avoiding his touch. "Beckett, do you really think kneeling down and begging erases 5 years of lies and schemes? That's not what I mean. I truly regret it." "You don't regret hurting me," I said, locking eyes with him, each word deliberate. "You regret that your plan failed. You couldn't survive in the U.S. You lost your money and your future. You're back now, not because you love me, but because I'm the only lifeline you have left. Stop acting devoted in front of me. I've seen enough." "You should be receiving the court summons soon," I added, turning away. "As for the $6 million and that apartment, the court will decide. Whatever belongs to me, I won't give up a single cent." "Ophelia," he roared behind me. "Are you really that heartless? We were husband and wife. Does that mean nothing?" I didn't look back. I walked straight into the rain. Heartless? Compared to the calculation he made at the airport that day, this was nothing more than self-defense. What followed unfolded like every cliché drama, heading toward its inevitable ending. Thalia returned home too, but life wasn't kind to her. She demanded $3 million from Beckett as compensation for her youth. Of course, he couldn't produce it. Most of the money had been squandered, and what remained was frozen by the court. Thalia was ruthless. She took her evidence straight to the hospital and made a scene. That was the final blow. Beckett's reputation was completely ruined. Though he wasn't fired immediately, he was removed from frontline clinical work and reassigned to the medical records department, a position with no real authority. The once glorious deputy director of orthopedics became the laughingstock of the entire hospital. To calm things down, Beckett scraped together money from everywhere, even selling a small apartment his parents owned back in their hometown, and paid Thalia $500,000 to settle the matter. Thalia took the money and moved to another company. But the medical industry is a small world. Her reputation followed her, and big deals became hard to come by. I heard she'd started going on blind dates nonstop, trying to find her next long-term provider. Those who scheme against others will, in the end, be schemed against themselves. 15. Half a year later, the dust finally settled. With the evidence airtight, especially the ruling that he had maliciously transferred marital assets, the verdict held no suspense. I got back the apartment that was rightfully mine and kept the bulk of the savings. As for the millions he transferred to Thalia and squandered, they ultimately became a crushing debt he'd carry for the rest of his life. The moment Beckett received the judgment, it was as if his spine had been pulled out. He collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. When I walked out of the courthouse, the sunlight was perfect. Hale smiled at me and asked, "How do you feel?" I thought for a moment, then took a deep breath of free air. The sky's really blue. It was finally over. Another year passed. I sold the marital apartment, so full of memories and lies, and used my share to take over the neighboring storefront, doubling the size of my cafe. Now my shop is a local hotspot, a place people line up to check in and take photos. I'm busy but fulfilled. Every dollar is earned by my own hands. Every day is lived for myself. Sometimes I still see Beckett's posts when scrolling social media. He's still at that hospital, posting wellness platitudes and occasional complaints. I heard he's been on a few blind dates, but once women learn about his divorce history and debt, things never go any further. Coffee beans taste bitter when ground, but with proper extraction, they leave a sweet aftertaste. Life is the same. I untie my apron and push open the cafe door. Outside, spring is in full bloom.
This is Whispered Women's Stories. Not every woman gets a fairy tale ending, but some of us get something better, our freedom. If you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or taken for granted, remember this. The moment you choose yourself, the story changes. Thank you for listening. Until next time.